Thank you very much, Sophia. I appreciate that, and thank you for having us. I started to think before I got up here of how I would introduce Janet, because Janet came to me, I guess her book came to me first, and it takes a really good book to keep me still for days, and I wasn't able to put the book down. So I remember thinking, if this can affect me this way, I can only imagine how broad the audience of how this book could really help all kinds of people. And so I think she started out as a client, and now I think I'm Project Girl possessed. So I'm here to share not only my views, but I would like to share with you what the media thinks about Janet McDonald and Project Girl. I'm going to start with the New York Times book review. They say that in her engrossing memoir, Project Girl, Janet McDonald, a Brooklyn-born lawyer now living in Paris, compares herself to Icarus because she too soared and fell mightily. The difference is that after her falls, McDonald picked herself up and charged onward. That was the New York Times book review. Time Out New York said, Project Girl remains a riveting book, a powerful, rare, first-hand account of one of the disregarded many who are, as she puts it, full of shrapnel but determined to survive. Frank McCourt, from author of Angela's Ashes, said, an eloquent account of a remarkable life. Project Girl should be placed on all high school and college reading lists and offered to anyone looking for a book beautifully written. Library Journal stated, to be young, gifted, and black is a blessing. It can also be an intolerable burden. Project Girl is a wrenching story. And the Kirkus Review said, powerful and painful reminder of the enormous gap between the culture of an inner-city black ghetto and middle-class white America, one so wide that education alone cannot be counted on to bridge it. And the Washington Post reveals a book that is most valuable as a story of one woman's search for her life meaning and happiness. And I feel very honored tonight to introduce to you not only a client, but someone very special who has helped me know that tomorrow I can wake up and do anything, is Janet McDonald, author of Project Girl.
Thank you. God, she's making me want to buy the book. I just want to thank certain people who helped me get to the point where I am here. I want to start out by thanking the Association of Pan-African Unity, Sophia Gabriel-Michael, Tiffany McLean for putting this all together. I also want to thank Ruth Lopez for driving me here from the train station. And I want to thank Dean Beverly Tatum, Office of the Dean of the College, and of course the Odyssey Bookstore for making these books available to you, and my great publicist Rena, who's really become a friend and someone who's really pushed for Project Girl to get to all of you. And I also want to thank Insia Rasawala, whom I met when I was in Paris, and she actually suggested that I come to Mount Holyoke and speak. So thank all of you for having me. Just to give you a little background about myself for those who haven't yet had the chance to read the book, you know, I'm from Brooklyn, and I come from a family of 7 kids, low-income public housing project. We also have another Project Girl in the house from Bushwick Houses, who's a student at Mount Holyoke. So it's always exciting for me to run into other people from the projects. And I practice international corporate law in Paris, where I've been living for the past 4 years. I majored in French at Vassar and sort of fell in love with Paris during my junior year abroad. But I'm not really here to brag about how great I am, because we have too many people doing that anyway. I think it's much more meaningful when you have achieved a certain level of success to share with people honestly how hard it was to get there, because it's not always easy. In fact, I don't think it's ever easy. And in my book, I wanted to really share in a pretty straightforward way a lot of the problems that I had, you know, coming from the projects, going to very prestigious Ivy League schools, working at, you know, Wall Street law firms. There's a lot of adjustments and culture shocks that go into all that, and that's what I've tried to capture in the book Project Girl. I would like to read I'm going to read a section of the book where I graduated from high school, but I didn't quite know how to get into college, so I went to a school in Harlem that was a free public prep school, and you spent a year there, and they would help you figure out how to do college applications, etc. So I'm going to read a section of the book where I talk about being at Harlem Prep and my first attempts to get to college and what that all involved and how that developed. College application season arrived all too soon. The prep had come to feel like family, and I wasn't eager to go to any other school. But the college counselor was adamant. Listen, Janet, the prep is a stepping stone, not a permanent stop. The kids come here for 1 year, get their act together, and go out there in the world to college. I'm not ready, I said. I like it here. He persuaded me to send out applications. He said, you're already past the deadlines, but I'm sure we can get them waived. We can also get your application fees waived if you don't have the money. I didn't. Grimly, I found a college guidebook and flipped through it. I had no idea what to look for in a college and basically couldn't tell the difference between one school and the next. Some were big, others small, all of them expensive. There were hundreds, thousands, all over the country. Certain names were familiar, most were not. I had no clue as to where to apply, and besides, I didn't want to leave the prep. It wasn't merely fear of going out there into a world ruled by white people full of negative presumptions about me. I had a deeper anxiety, one I shared with my art teacher. John, do you think I'm going to turn into a white girl if I go to college? I was distraught, which is probably the only reason he didn't laugh out loud. He said, college doesn't change you into someone else. You'll still be who you are, just better educated. His words relieved me somewhat. After weeks of analyzing the guidebooks, I selected a college on the absurdest of criteria. I like the name, I told the counselor. The name was Briarcliff, and it stirred imaginings of Heathcliffs, flowing capes, and the windswept moors of Wuthering Heights. In reality, the college, located in the hills of tiny Briarcliff Manor, New York, was an expensive finishing school for 500 debutantes with horses. The college brochure touted its on-campus stables and stable hands, and this was the place I had chosen to spend 4 years of my life. The counselor frowned slightly and said something about adults making their own decisions. I scheduled an interview at Briarcliff for what I thought was the permanently distant future, but time betrayed me, and the dreaded day actually arrived. I stepped from the Greyhound bus at the Briarcliff Manor depot. White snow blanketed the ground and trees. The few people milling about the station were white. The driver of the lone taxicab parked out front was white. I approached the cab. Where to, miss? Briarcliff College Admissions Building, I said, barely audibly. Oh, the college, real nice place. My head hurt as I stared from the window at the sprawling, split-level houses and big yards bearing down on me. The ride was cruelly short. Here you go, admissions. Have a nice day, miss. A black student hurried over to the cab. My hands were trembling. You must be Janet. Hi, I'm Martine. We're so happy you could make it. Big mistake. I wasn't going to make it at all. Hello, I said stiffly. Blood drummed in my temples. We walked in silence through a long corridor, and she left me outside a door marked Director of Admissions. When you're done, we'll show you around campus. Have a good one. Who was we? I wondered. I waited for a long time. No sooner had I leaned my head wearily on the back of the bench than the door to the office swung open, revealing the largest white woman I'd ever seen. She stood 6 feet tall and had short gray hair, a toothy smile, and pink skin. Well, hello, you must be Janet, she shouted, shaking my hand with great force. Why was she yelling? Give me a couple of minutes and I'll be right out to get you. Just as abruptly, she was gone. I was acutely aware of my heart's pounding. No way, no way. Just then, the same taxi cab pulled into the driveway in front of the building. I stood and thought for a moment, then went running down the corridor towards it. The next day at school, the counselor summoned me to his office. "What happened to you up there? You confused the hell out of the admissions director. She said she came out to get you and saw you running down the hall. Based on your record here at the prep, they were ready to admit you, Janet, if only you had waited. She said that if you want to reschedule." I said, "I'm not ready." He was disappointed but understanding. Mother didn't seem to mind one way or the other. Daddy, on the other hand, was disappointed and furious. "That was your chance, your ticket out of the projects. Nothing but fools in this family. You might as well go on downtown right this minute and sign up for welfare with the rest of the bums who do nothing but eat and sleep. And I thought you had a brain in that head." A year later, it was again time to apply to college. I showed the counselor a list of colleges that interested me. Lone Mountain College had a poetic name. The University of Hawaii sounded like paradise. And New York's City College was a sure admit. "Why don't you apply to Vassar?" he said. "They've already taken one of our students and say they'd be willing to take others." I flinched. "Isn't that the school for rich white girls like Jackie Kennedy?" I flashed back to Briarcliff. He said, "Now don't start your rich white girl thing again. Vassar is a top school, one of the 7 sisters, and we need as many of us in schools like that as we can get." I wanted to say, "Then send your mama." Why did I always have to be the one to carry the flag and plant it in foreign soil? He answered my unspoken question. "You're a straight-A student and you did extremely well on the SATs. You're the perfect candidate." Wondering who were the 7 sisters, I wrote Vassar for an application and fee waiver form. Spring came and I was en route to Vassar College for an interview. After departing from Grand Central Station, the Poughkeepsie train makes one more stop in Harlem before leaving the city and winding north along the Hudson River. Along the way, it drops off urban professionals who work in Manhattan but raise families in green suburbs. The quaint Poughkeepsie train station was unpleasantly reminiscent of the Briarcliff Manor bus depot. The taxicab driver pulled through the Gothic Vassar arch, slowed down for an approving nod from the security guard, and left me standing in the middle of acres of evergreen trees. Ivy crawled the front of main building, my destination. I exhaled stress, then inhaled the smell of Christmas and clean air. The inscription above the doorway read, "Vassar College, founded 1861. My ancestors were still slaves while Matthew Vassar was worrying about the education of white women. This school wasn't intended for me. I had nothing in common with Jacqueline Kennedy. What was I doing standing at the front door of her college? "You must be Janet." The voice of a wasp. The youthful director of admissions had dark brown hair and a big smile. "Welcome." His blithe manner reminded me of another director of admissions, but I chased her memory from my mind. "Yes," I answered, not knowing what else to say. He led me to his office, chatting about dormitories, language labs, and tennis courts. A student-guided tour had been arranged for me and other prospective students, he said, and some of the black students were very eager to meet me. "Okay," I said, once again waxing articulate. The interview was one of those, "So tell me about yourself," ordeals that leave perspiration stains on your best blouse. There's no telling what a teenager might babble under such stress. Nevertheless, by the end of the interview, I had the impression he liked me, and that made me like him back. The campus tour was spectacular. I wanted what Vassar had to offer. Not the education, but the life. Sunlight reflected off the long window panes of the central dining hall. The well-groomed golf course stretched beyond the eye's reach. The castle-like library flashed color from its stained glass windows, and barefoot white kids in cut-off jeans chased frisbees. Everything I saw was the opposite of the projects. Vassar was a place where you strolled on soft grass, ate as much as your stomach could hold, and lived without fear of muggings, robberies, or assault. And all I had to do was sit in a classroom a few hours a day and write some research papers. What a deal. No wonder white people were so happy. Meeting the black students dispelled the one lingering concern I had about the college. The students I met had not become white at all. They were quite unlike my own project tribe and my Harlem Prep peers, but they were definitely black. I decided I would attend Vassar if they accepted me. A few weeks later, Mother made her usual morning stop at the mailbox. She returned carrying a thin letter. "Here, you got mail from that college." She was still holding the 6-inch nail she carried for protection against muggers. She'd explained that it offered her the best of both worlds, a weapon that wasn't illegal. I scrutinized the envelope. It was too soon for a decision, unless, of course, it was negative. I braced myself. Who wanted to be a white girl anyway? "We are pleased to inform you." I read no further. Yes! Mother raised her hands to the heavens. "Well, knock me down and fan me with a brick. My baby's going to college. You know you got your brains from me." The prep graduation ceremony was held outdoors because the Carpenters, the headmaster and headmistress, wanted the residents of Harlem to see us graduate. Daddy stood taller than usual, his broad chest covered with cameras. Mother beamed, repeatedly pointing her Instamatic at the commencement speaker, Ossie Davis. Davis's powerful voice echoed across Harlem, condemning drugs and death, pleading for hope and struggle. Our graduation class sang "To Be Young, Gifted, and Black" one last time and headed off for college. Fall had come early, and red and gold leaves colored the campus. A tan station wagon carrying fidgety black people and mismatched suitcases pulled into the entrance to one of the country's most exclusive women's colleges. Aristocratic family names like Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, and Bouvier adorn its graduates like crowns. New money celebrities like Henry Fonda and George C. Scott send their girls, too, to mingle with the children of doctors and lawyers and politicians. And alongside all these titans was the proudest postal worker in Brooklyn, who had also driven for hours to deposit his daughter at Vassar. My interview visit had not quite prepared me for that first day. The driveway leading up to main building was packed with cars, as were the roads to the dorms, cars piled high with luggage and bikes. The license plates made me nervous. Every rich white girl from Connecticut to California was moving into a Vassar dorm. White and rich had always been synonymous in my way of thinking. Mother reacted similarly. "Ooh, Janet, you going to school with rich white folk," she whispered in awe. Daddy didn't say much, but he took in the scene as though he were the excited new freshman. "Look at those big, pretty trees," Mother continued, still whispering. I was also intimidated and a touch paranoid. I felt white students scrutinizing me to see if I posed any threat to their little treasure. My Harlem Prep friend, Joy, summed up my impressions in a letter she'd written me before dropping out of Southampton, Massachusetts Junior College. "Janet, they got the real white people here." We were in the lair of the big cat, the wealthy white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Not so much the real white people as the really white people. Or as Joy put it in her desperate letter, the ones they got on TV. Kevin looked at me with big eyes and said, "Wow, you get to go to camp." Daddy forced me into embarrassing poses in front of wide evergreens and freshly painted pillars. My brother Ernest made cracks about college girls, and my sister Ann reminded me that I was on the verge of an important transformation. "You're gonna end up a white girl." We had lunch on campus and moved my belongings into my new room. The time came. Tears threatened to embarrass me. I swallowed hard and blinked. "I'm so proud of you. Try to give us a short call once a week. We know you can do it." The campus reverberated with such classic parentisms, as a long line of departing cars inched toward the front gate. Maybe Daddy knew I could do it, but I wasn't at all sure as I hurried up the dorm steps to my room to unpack and ponder. College was one step along the road to a world of opportunities, connections, and choices for my fellow students. Most had at least some notion about their future and Vassar's role in it, whereas my dilemma was Shakespearean. While the others were in college to be stockbrokers like their mothers, lawyers like their aunts, or professors like their fathers, I had been told to go to college in order not to be like my mother or my aunt or my father. The affirmative purpose of college eluded me. No one had ever truly explored with me why I should go to college or what I might study. Despite my request for a single, I was assigned to a double room. Fortunately, it was an alcove room, a large space divided into two distinct living areas. Being the first to arrive, I got to choose the area I preferred. My section had everything I needed and much more than I had at home. There was a dresser drawer, a closet, a bed, a desk, and a chair. Once I had plugged in my old record player, put sheets on the bed, and stuck my little brother Kevin's photograph on the mirror, I was set. The thought of sharing a room with another girl didn't really appeal to me, but I accepted my fate. Maybe she would be a kindred spirit, a shy, frightened, self-conscious little project girl who didn't have a typewriter. I would have to wait and see. But suppose she was a rich, stuck-up white girl, or a rich, stuck-up black girl. In one of her letters, Joy told me how a freshman had got rid of her unwanted roommate by leaving her panties out to air every night. Because the potential for embarrassment so greatly outweighed the slight chance of success, I rejected that option and decided to enjoy my solitude while I had it, which wasn't very long. The rattle of keys shattered my bliss. Someone else might have dashed over to unlock the door and welcome their new roommate. Not me. I sought refuge at my desk, where I immediately opened a book and pretended to read. The door banged open against the wall. The sound of bustling footsteps, heavy breathing, and slamming suitcases left no doubt as to who had arrived. I stood up from the desk and contracted my cheek muscles into a fairly decent smile. She started, "Oh, you scared me. I didn't realize anyone was..." I struggled against the urge to run. "Hi, I'm Janet. Need help?" She was black, but I could tell instantly that color was about as kindred as we were going to get. It's not that I didn't like her. It's just that she appeared so unproject. "Hi, I'm Brenda. I just got in this morning from California. Do you know San Diego? It's really pretty." "Oh, you're from New York? God, I would love to visit Manhattan and the Empire State Building, but New York's so dangerous. Are you from New York proper?" I had no idea what she meant by proper. I said, "Brooklyn." "Oh God, the Brooklyn Bridge is so beautiful. I mean, from the pictures I've seen of it, you're so lucky. God, I can't believe I'm here. I gotta call my mom." Mom? Wasn't that a white girl term? At home, we said mother. Brenda and I were desperately different. She was sweet. So was I, but she was sweet with a vengeance. She spoke in a little girl voice and had loaded her side of the room with a confusion of little girl things, metal wind-up things, stuffed smiling things, and green furry things that dangled from the ceiling on coiled springs. She had a glossy, smooth perm, clothes galore, a sleek electric typewriter, and an elaborate stereo system that she said I could use whenever I wanted. God, it was such a hassle getting everything here. When's your stuff arriving? All my things are here. That's it? She shuddered. Yeah, I don't like clutter, I said defensively. Wow. Her sweetness was beginning to feel oppressive. I went to my desk and resumed my pretense of reading. Sorry to interrupt, Janet, but come look. Which ones do you like, the one with the flowers or the ones with the butterflies? I'm sure the rod will be long enough to go across the whole window. The struggle for power was on. I don't like curtains. Come on, they'll be so nice and brighten up this drab place. Our room didn't look drab to me. In fact, I quite liked it the way it was. I think the ones with the flowers will make it feel really homey, please. At first, thinking I wasn't serious, she cracked jokes about bribing me with food and ready-made term papers. Then she applied herself to begging. Pretty please with sugar on top. I didn't budge. Poor Brenda. She just wanted to recreate home, a comfortable California house with nice curtains and matching bedspreads. I wanted to be sweet, but resented Brenda for the life that had led her to Vassar. How dare she have been safe and happy? The flowered curtain was nice, but no, there would be no curtains. I agreed, however, to a compromise, and sweet Brenda began college life in a room with a half-curtained window. She told her friends I was weird and said the decor of my half of the room was early prison cell. The irony of my choice did not escape me. I had deliberately chosen a school far from home, and now I felt lost and fearful. As awful as the projects were in some respects, their world was my home. I had been wrong to split my experience into rigid categories of black and white. My neighborhood was black, but far removed from Brenda's California world of curtains and teddy bears. Blackness was obviously only part of the puzzle. I had left a unique subculture, a universe so distinct that we had our own mores, customs, style of dress, and even our own dialect. We were project people, a tribe apart, and I was apart from my tribe. It was terrifying. Thank you. I'll answer any questions you have or listen to any comments you want to make in French or English. I did major in French. Yes?
Okay. I was curious. Okay. I was just curious. At the beginning of your reading, you talked about how you were fearful of becoming white if you went to a very white school. Why you didn't apply to some of the very predominant, generally, historically, black schools like Spelman or Morehouse? Never mind. But I know that Spelman is, and I know it's really good.
All questions are accepted here. Well, part of the reason was that I didn't even know these colleges existed. My parents didn't go to college. They didn't even go to high school. I think my father finished junior high school. So I didn't have anyone giving me any advice about college. I didn't have any college counseling other than what I got at Harlem Prep. And the counselor had suggested Vassar, and he didn't suggest other schools. And it wasn't really that I was afraid to become white at a white college. I was just afraid to become white by going to college. And I think that's the problem, one of the problems that we have in the black community, where if you're academically oriented or, a bookworm, you're immediately labeled, white. So that there's this negative association between academics and being black, like somehow they're mutually exclusive. So that was part of the problem, and that's what I was grappling with.
Can I ask you a backup?
Oh, certainly.
What was your conclusion after your 4 years at Vassar? What did you find?
You mean, did I turn white? Actually, my conclusion...
I mean, as far as your growth in those 4 years, obviously, you grew it.
Well, I think my conclusion is pretty much summed up in what my art teacher told me when I went to him, so worried that some bizarre transformation was going to take over me by going to college. And he said, you will be whoever you are, just better educated. And that's my conclusion, that you can go to any school, black or predominantly white, and you're going to be who you are. Thank you.
Personally, I really feel honored that we have such a person come from Brooklyn, like myself. And I wanted to ask you why the title, Project Girl. I know personally that we want to get out of the projects, and saying the project is something really negative, whatever. Why Project Girl? Like, the title really came out to me.
I chose Project Girl myself, and I chose it deliberately because it is negative. It's considered to be negative. It's considered by people who aren't from the projects as a pejorative term. So I wanted to represent the projects and say, I'm from the projects. I'm an international corporate lawyer who's been practicing law in Paris for 4 years. I went to Vassar, Columbia, and NYU, and this is what a project person can be, so that it's more than just this negative stereotype about hoodlums. So I deliberately chose that name instead of, you know, Vassar Girl or Paris Girl. I wanted, I wanted to let people know that when they're looking at me, I am someone from the projects, an area that they might associate with the kind of people they might not want to know.
Yes. Just hearing you speak about your relationship with your mom, I'm wondering exactly how she took the book. I know parents sometimes are surprised about what they learn about their children through writing, and I'm guessing that she probably learned a lot of new things about you. So exactly how does she react?
Well, I wasn't there because I ordered the book for her so that she could read it while I wasn't there, but I'm sure that she said, knock me down and fan me with a brick. I spoke to her after she read it, and she said that she had to read it twice, and that the first time it was a shock, and then the second time she was able to take it in more. But see, part of that is growing up in the projects, and you know, I have 6 brothers and sisters, and I was the good one, and they were all messing up. I mean, I messed up too, as you will see in the book, but I always, even when I fell, I sort of managed to land on my feet or somehow get back on course. But there was so much negativity, and she was going through so much with my other siblings that I always wanted to protect her from any problems that, you know, the star child would be having. So I never really told her much about the hard times, just to spare her that. And then she gets this whole book with a lot of hard times in it. But I think it's really great, and it's let her see me as more than this, you know, overachieving machine that always had it easy.
I really first would just like to thank you for coming, and I think it's really a beneficial experience to be listening to such a positive outcome. But my question was, have you had any type of entertaining or humorous things that have happened to you since you have published and released Project Girl?
Well, this is my first book. It's my first book tour. So I was in New York just a couple days ago with Rena. We were making the rounds of the bookstores, and I was talking to this young woman who's a black security guard at one of the major bookstores, and I said, oh yeah, you should check out my book, Project Girl. And she's like, oh, I know that book. Someone tried to steal it yesterday. And I was so flattered that someone would want to steal my book. She said, yeah, we caught this girl stealing the book, and we take a picture of the cover of books that are stolen so we'll know to keep them closer to the cash register. So I thought that was pretty funny.
I guess I want to ask a question. Okay. I know what I'm doing. Why did you feel ready to write this book now? I mean, what brought it on? When did you feel you're ready to put all this down and share it with the world?
I think that, you know, when you're going through like major changes and major traumas, I would write in my journal, but more as a catharsis. And now that I'm all right, and I've gotten through things that were really, really difficult, and I don't anticipate ever going through anything that difficult again. I just thought, because I am a lawyer, and in a certain sense, by societal standards, I'm a success. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if someone who is a success stood up and said something other than, how you like me now, I'm so great. And I think it's really meaningful because I was thinking I want to write the kind of book that I would like to read or that I could have benefited from when I was growing up. And so I wanted to really be able to share, now that it doesn't hurt so much, or really not that much at all, I wanted to put that out there for people who might be going through similar changes and feel like, I am never going to make it, I have really messed up big time, and just be here to say, well, look at me, I'm here, and I messed up big time more than once.
I was wondering what you did during breaks when you went home. I come from a dichotomous family. I have my father's side who were sharecroppers in the South, and fifth grade education, 7 members living in the projects, like you were saying, in your situation. Then there's the mom's side of the family who's been Ivy League Ivy Leaguer since the beginning of this century, and probably the first blacks in Ivy Leagues. So when I went to my paternal grandmother's house and she'd say, how's school? It's good. You know, I really couldn't talk to her about a lot of things because she wasn't exposed to a lot of the subjects I was studying. I couldn't have engaging conversations. Whereas on my other grandmother's side of the family, she's like, oh, we just extended the library, and I was able to have engaging conversations and continue my academic pursuits and questions with her. So I've seen both ends of it, and I was just wondering what it was like for you to go on breaks and have learned such scintillating information and possibly not having anyone to share it with or to continue your educational questions outside of your campus.
That's really a good question because I think that goes to the core of what can be really difficult about leaving a certain kind of subculture and going elsewhere. Because I would go home and no one could they couldn't relate to what I was talking about or any of the problems I was going through because, like, as my little brother said when he was at Vassar, wow, you get to go to camp. So they couldn't imagine they didn't have a frame of reference for college and for, Ivy League. So basically there was no communication about that because there couldn't be, since they didn't know what I was talking about. So I would go home and sort of click into project gear or project mode, and we would talk about project stuff, like who got killed or who died, who OD'd on drugs, or who was mugged. And as far as what my personal experience was going through college, it wasn't discussed because there was just no frame of reference for it. So the result of that is that there can be a lot of loneliness and a sense of alienation from the family. They were all very proud of me, but sort of as this shiny, bright object that just, radiated light. And I remember that I would actually sometimes be really angry and resentful because, they would just say, oh, Janet, you're smart, it's easy for you, it'll all work out. And they had no idea, like, how I was struggling. Now they do.
Thank you.
I was wondering when you decided to major in French and then what made you decide to go abroad?
Well, I would like to say that I always wanted to major in French from childhood, but that's not what happened. A lot of the decisions I've made in life have been kind of haphazard, like Lone Mountain College has a poetic name. I never really intended to major in French. In fact, I didn't want to major in French because I thought, oh, that's real useful. I took a little bit of French in junior high school. Then I got to Vassar, and I thought, I found out they had this junior year abroad program, and I'd never been out of the country. I hadn't really been out of New York. And I thought, if I declare French as my major, they have to take me. And that's what I did. I declared French as my major. They had to take me. And my plan was to come back after my junior year and major in psychology or something useful. But after spending that year in Paris and really getting immersed in French language and culture, I basically fell in love with it. So I came back and just kept French as my major. And people would say, oh, what are you going to do with that? And I really had no idea.
Do you think that it was easier for you to fit in Paris because it was a different culture than actually at Vassar?
Yes, I felt much more comfortable in Paris, and I write a lot about Paris and what that represents for me. I think because it was so different, I was free. Because, you know, when you're in a shared culture, people look at you and they size you up, and if your hair is this way, it means that, and if your shoes are that way, it means that. Everything has meaning within the cultural context. And if you go into a completely different context, no one knows what your hair or your shoes mean. Anything I did, I would just say, oh, this is an American thing. And it was great. I could do just about anything. I remember a friend of mine said, why do you wear blue tinted glasses? Because my prescription glasses were blue because I wanted the sky to look bluer. And I said, oh, it's American, we all do it. So it was very liberating.
How was the transition from law school to working in the corporate setting? Because you're not just a lawyer, but you're a corporate lawyer. And as a woman and as a black woman, was it difficult for you to make your rounds and be respected in corporate America?
Yes, it's very difficult. I think it's difficult for women in general to try to enter these male bastions and professional areas. And because it was corporate, it made it more difficult and easier at the same time. I grew up in the projects where I knew a whole lot of people who were crime victims and criminals, and I thought, I don't want to prosecute my friends, and I don't want to defend my friends who've done bad things to people. So I couldn't even deal with that whole arena. And I decided I wanted to do something that was kind of emotionally neutral, that didn't have a lot of meaning or emotionalism about it. It was just about, businesses. But it was very difficult because, you go in and there's always this presumption of inferiority that has to be overcome, being a woman, being a person of color. And that whole situation switched being a lawyer in France, where all of a sudden I'm an American lawyer. And it's not, oh, she's a black lawyer, but I'm an American lawyer, have American law training, and that's something they need. So all of a sudden, it was a very, very positive experience. There wasn't this sense of, well, is she good enough? But rather, she speaks English, she's better than we are. And so it really worked well.
Do you think things are any easier today for kids growing up in projects or ghettos? And have we learned anything in the last however many years and to help them along with schools and recommending things, and even at college with support groups?
Well, really my impression is that there really hasn't been that much progress as far as I can see within communities of color, as far as our relationship to education, to books, to what some people call being nerds. Because I just read a book recently about a black teenager in Washington, D.C. who was gifted academically, and he was at a really bad high school. And he went through the same things I went through, and that was like 20 years ago. And he had the same things, people saying he was a white boy or trying to be white. So I think within the communities, we really have to make an effort to overcome that stereotype. But as far as support groups on campus and in schools, I think that they're good. I think that, it's good for people to come together and share their shared and common experiences. You had a question?
Lots of people have been sort of trying to figure out the kinds of things that you're asking about. What can people do to make the experience easier? And one of the things that has been looked at is, what are the individual things that people did for you that did make the go to Vassar easier? And when you look at those kinds of things and you look back, what kinds of things that are just the little things, not the big institutional things, but the little things that made things easier rather than harder?
I think I was talking to a Mount Holyoke student today, and she was talking about how if you really start having a meaningful interaction with faculty members, that makes a big difference in terms of how you feel at that institution. I know when I was at Vassar, my English professor, Judy Kroll, would take time to just hang out with me or let me loiter in her office. And we talked a lot, and that was real. That's a little thing, but it goes a long way. As far as making it overall easier, I think for me the problem was just that my family life was so much at the opposite extreme of where I was going academically, and there was nothing there that resounded to my experience at Vassar. But I think as far as faculty being, responsive and open and just treating students as individuals, that goes a long way.
You talk about the gap between the way your home life was and the way it is at Mount Holyoke. And, sorry, Vassar.
I think we have a Freudian slip.
Okay, that was so Freudian. Okay, yes. At Vassar. I'm talking from a personal standpoint here. How, as you grew older and you just learned more, did you learn to bridge that gap? And did you bridge that gap? Because, like you said, there are people at home who aren't going to understand where you're coming from, but yet there's still people you love dearly and help raise you and help you be the person you are today. So what advice would you have for those of us who are trying to find that crossover and be comfortable with what's at home, which is as much a part of myself as what is here?
Mm-hmm. You have to first become comfortable with yourself and all of yourselves. And I think I grappled a lot with that because, it's like I didn't want to become a white girl and I wanted to be a project girl, but then I wanted to be a college girl, and everything seemed to, be mutually exclusive, when in fact these things aren't exclusive. I think for me, just accepting that I'm a whole bunch of girls and they are all good. And I'm college, I'm project, I'm a lawyer, and I have no excuses to make and I have nothing to prove. And once you can really get to that point of not letting other people's judgments of you really undermine your feeling of self-worth, then you're in a good situation.
What kept you, like in high school, when they were calling you white, trying to be stuck up, trying to be like them other people, going back to the library and getting books and, keeping yourself going as far as education-wise, wanting to make those A's instead of making C's so everybody else would talk to you?
Well, my father was a major influence, a major positive influence in how I approached school and academics, because even though he was self-educated, he wasn't formally educated, he pushed school so much in the family. And from the earliest days I can remember, he would say, this is your ticket and school is your ticket, and he really pushed us to do well in school. So that was a major motivating force. And also, when you do well in school, you get a lot of positive reinforcement from your teachers, and so that was very positive and it felt good. So I was just going towards whatever felt good, and if I got A's, adults seemed to like me, so I kept trying to get them.
You said that you were worried that you were going to turn into a white girl when you went to college, and you found that you were going to be who you were no matter what. How did your opinion of white girls change when you went to college?
Well, in fact, it's a really good point, and I tried to bring that out a little bit by highlighting the fact that, I had this black roommate, but it didn't mean that we were even from the same worlds. What was going on with it, I had a lot of stereotypes in my own mind about, black girls and what a black girl should be, and because, this roommate of mine wasn't from the projects, I had a problem with her, and, I had this stereotype about, all white girls or rich white girls, and these were just stereotypes based on my limited experience growing up in a very limited, small community of the projects. And of course, you grow up and you meet people and you realize that, people are different. And there are some rich white girls and there are some project white girls, and Rena's one of them. And so, oops, sorry. And so you just have to, everyone's talking about diversity. you really have to accept your inner diversity, that you can be many different things, and accept the diversity of other groups, because not all white girls are the same. And I ended up making a lot of really, really good friends with, you know, the rich white girls at Vassar, a couple of them. I just had a book party in New York where I had a rich black girl from Vassar at the party, and you just have to stop thinking in terms of those boxes and those rigid categories, and let people be human beings, because that's what I wanted to be, and that's how I wanted to be treated.
How do you want Project Girl, the book, to help people? In what way do you want Project Girl to make an impact on people's lives?
I would just like that if there's, you know, I like one-on-one things, I like personal things. And if there's somebody who is just going through major changes about something in their life, and they can pick up Project Girl and get some kind of solace or comfort or a sense of identification from that, that would be great.
Was there any one book for you that, while you were growing up or in college, did for you somewhat of what you hope Project Girl will do for someone else?
I think it was, well, there were two books actually. When I read The Bluest Eye, Toni Morrison, that was really a very powerful experience for me, and also The Bell Jar, Sylvia Plath. And my professor, Judy Crow, was writing a book about Sylvia Plath, so I got to proofread her manuscript. And I would cite those two books as being really important in my development.
Were there any other role models that you saw that helped you continue going on? Not necessarily, I want to be like Mike, but I want to be like that woman sitting in the office over there. Any of those types of role models?
Well, you know, I really didn't have role models around me in my immediate community. As I was saying in the reading, that my dilemma was Shakespearean, because it was all about who not to be like. And I can't really look to anyone, I mean, in a distant way. You know, I was growing up and, you know, Angela Davis seemed really brilliant to me, and to have a major grasp of how society functioned. And I mentioned her a lot in the book, and I won't say she was my role model because I didn't model myself on her, but she definitely was, you know, an idol and a major influence, because I had a lot of admiration for her. I guess that's why they made my picture sort of look like Angela Davis instead of me.
My question is, I was wondering, after you graduated from Vassar, did you ever return to your high school or to your community to speak to young people that were there at that time, and just encourage them to do more and to be more?
Well, after I left Vassar, I was in bad shape. I was in no position or no state of mind to be going back to speak to young people. And when you have a chance to read through the book, you'll see that it took me a long time to get to where I am now, standing before you, because it just wasn't time for many, many years after I left Vassar for me to be talking to anybody except the psychiatrist.
I took an Asian American history class last semester, and one of the young Asian American girls in the class said that when she is with her Asian friends, makes her realize how white she feels, and when she is with her white friends, she realizes how Asian she feels. I was wondering if you struggle with that same dualism.
In the past, I did, because I guess when I would be back in the projects, I could feel the difference and the distance just because my experience had broadened and deepened more than the people I'd grown up with. But it wasn't about me feeling white, it was just about feeling very different. But now, you know, I don't know why, but it seems like everything has come together, and I was just back home. My family's still in the project, so when I come back to the United States, you know, I go home and stay with my family or hang out with them. And it's really great because at my book party was overrun with people from the projects. And it was such an exciting experience because these are people who didn't know any published authors, had never been to a book party. They were even bringing records. And I'm like, this is a book party, we're not going to be dancing. But it was so exciting for them, and it was so exciting for me. And like I am one of them, and they accept me as one of them, even though I'm all these other things. So it sort of has come together.
Well, Janet, I would love to thank you very much
Thank
for
you
coming
for
here.
having me.
It's been a pleasure and an experience and an honor for me, and I know it's been the same for the other people here. And of course, you're welcome to come back anytime. I'll only be here for 2 more years, but you're always welcome to come back. And so I know that we now have a book sales and signing, and so I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank Rena, and I'd like to thank Encia, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have been able to bring Miss McDonald here. So,
Thank you. And I just want to say, whenever any of you is in Paris, look me up. What's that phone number? Oh, okay. You're okay. I'm gonna run and get my pen, and I'll sign you first. Great job. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Let me just get my It's nice to look out in the audience and see you smiling. I always feel better if I'm like, oh, someone's laughing at my jokes. Thank you. I wasn't laughing at you. No, it was great.
Yes, that's awful when you say something funny. Nobody's listening.
What's your name? S-U-S-A-S?
Yeah.
Another left-hander.
Yeah.
That's creativity.
Oh, yeah, I know. Left-handed people are special. That's another girl. Left-handed girl.
Everyone was born right-handed, only the greatest overcame it.
I very much enjoyed your presentation, and I've read a little bit about the book, and I think
Before you came here tonight?
Yes, I can't remember where I read it, but and I thought to myself, it's amazing how much more we all have in common than we have differences, because I could relate on a lot of levels to some of the things you talked about. I have a friend who is a sponsor of Night of the Dream program, which means he's adopted inner city kids and gotten through high school, and a lot of the issues we're struggling with now are that mixed identity of young people. Anyhow, if you would make it out to him, Too Blue is his name. L-O-U? Yes. I hope that's the way it's spelled.
Your what? 2415? Yes, good luck. Is this the beginning of your touring? I like the selection you picked to share, too. I mean, it was amazing. I could have sat and listened to it all myself. Thank you.
You also have a lovely reading voice.
Yes.
I'm getting all the compliments tonight. Thank you.
I've come to appreciate the fact that partially because I think a lot of what we have trouble with today in the world is marketing ideas, because we've used louder voices. And that sometimes the most wonderful people can market their ideas with lovely voices that are soft and thing, because they realize that they have something to say.
And then getting comfortable with what you have to say doesn't mean you have to yell.
Talk loud or talk fast. This is for me, and my name is Diana. D-I-N-A.
Okay. It was coming.
Now that you said you speak so well. I know. Well, thank you, and good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Sue.
S-U-E.
S-U-E, as simple as it comes.
Okay.
You don't even have to type.
Next week at Mount Holyoke, a woman who was actually a colleague and a good friend of mine, who did doctoral research on 20 women who had 4 out of 5 of the so-called factors why they shouldn't have been a success in higher ed.
Oh yeah, I've heard about those
And
factors.
basically,
They had 4 out of 5.
and they all have been successful in higher ed. So she actually did a study of them, 20 of them, to find out what it is that really made it possible. And she's presenting that to Mount Holyoke next week.
I'm sure I had 5 out of 5.
I think they all, in some ways, had 5 out of 5, but it's interesting. Thank you.
Hello. How are you? You did a real good job up there. You really did. I really enjoyed it. What's your son? Tarsha, T-A-R-S-H-A.
Okay, my niece's name is Tasha. T-A-S-H-A.
My grandmother named me that.
Oh, my family must have arrived. I hear rowdy voices.
Taking some photos back there.
Oh, photo ops.
Crying back there. I felt like when I started reading the book, I really felt like when I went to Vassar and I went to Mount Holyoke, because those two schools were the ones that I was trying to choose between. And
Me too. I applied at Mount Holyoke too.
Really? Yeah.
And I was accepted to both, and I was like, which one? Emily Dickinson or Edna St. Vincent Millay? Wow. And so you ended up here?
Yeah, I did. My cousin went to Vassar. She remembered you. Gwen Sally, she graduated in 1981.
Wow, okay.
STCI.
Okay. What year are you now?
I'm a sophomore.
Well, hang in there. Thanks, Stacy.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, how are you?
What's your name?
Lakeisha. L-A-K.
L-A-K.
I-S-H-I-A.
My mother asked me here.
You're a student here?
Yes, last year.
All right.
Graduating in May.
You go, girl.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really good. With everything else.
Actually, I was wondering if you could sign it to my friend. I just wanted to get it for her. Her name's Kimie, K-I-M-I-E.
K-I-M-I-E.
Thank you.
Make sure she lets you read it.
Yeah, it'll be good. I think she needs to know this.
Yeah, okay.
Hi. Can you make it out to Beth?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, she's past that nap.
So what year are you?
I'm a sophomore here. I'm actually Sophie's roommate from last year. Yeah, which is one of the reasons I asked that question, because we used to be up until like 3 in the morning talking about things like that. We had very different backgrounds.
So have you chosen your major yet?
English and economics.
Everyone seems so much more directed than me. I didn't choose my major until I came back from junior year abroad.
This is the 6th major I've had.
Oh, well, I don't feel so bad.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Beth.
Hi, did you make it out to Kate?
Kate?
Yeah.
K-A-T-E?
Yep.
Oh, what a
Thank you.
I want to thank you. Thank you so much. What an inspiration you are. It's great. I'm glad that you wrote this book. I can't wait to read it.
What's your name?
Catherine with a K.
Catherine.
K-A-T-H-R-I-N-E.
Okay.
I'm staying with her. Yeah. Okay. Take whatever one you need. Okay. That's going to be 48:30.
You a sophomore too?
No, I'm a senior.
Ready for the real world?
I just received an offer the other day.
Yeah? Where are you going?
JP Morgan.
Right.
So hopefully. Yeah. Can't wait.
Yeah, okay.
Give them hell.
So it may have.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good luck,
you.
but I don't know. If worst comes to worst, we'll write down for Kelly.
Yeah, because that would be a nice time to get in the house. That would be such a nice picture.
You're dealing with a major conflict, it sounds like. Having two sides of the family.
Yeah, I've come.
See, I only
I've
had
come
like
to
one
learn-
thing going in my family.
And I
but
had
know-
I had the extremes of both.
Mhm.
And I've come to grips. One thing that I've learned is how to talk to my grandmother. And I've spoken to her more in my college years than I have in my entire life, because I learned
And
about
she's the one who's on the educated side?
No. The one, yeah. And they came up north during the Black Migration, and my father was head of the household at 13 because the father died. He was significantly older, and he died. My father was raising his 6 siblings with my grandmother, but I found that it wasn't about my world, but her world. So I started asking her questions about farming.
Really?
So she could talk about tobacco for hours, right? So that was how I was able to connect
That
with
was the
her.
bridge.
Right, and so I would relate her experiences of migration to, like, growing up to going to Mount Holyoke and stuff like that. But I'm a Spanish major, so I can relate to a lot of what you're talking about, and I lived abroad.
Like, what good is that?
Exactly, so
In fact,
it's
the
really
people
great
were
to
so
hear.
haughty. They were like, what are you going to do with that? I'm pre-med or I'm pre-law.
Actually, I'm a
I'm like,
double
well-
major, but my other one's critical social thought, so it's like same thing. So it's wonderful to hear about. I don't know, it's just fabulous.
See, the good thing about law school is they'll accept any major. So I majored in French, and I really didn't know what to do, and I thought, well, law school takes anybody. I'll just go to law school. It was really kind of haphazard.
I'm a senior here, so I'll be graduating. I got a fellowship to go to Brazil. So I'll be in Brazil for about 4 months. When I come back, I'll be in your shoes where you were when you graduated at Vassar. Exactly. Kelly, K-E-L-L-E-Y. E-Y. And I will be in Paris. So.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I really do visit people.
I'll give you my card before I leave.
I would love that.
I love to have visitors.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hi. Kyrie, K-Y.